Welcome everyone, MATÉ talk time. How cool is this? Believe it or not, without sort of massaging dates and moving things around, today is the actual 5th birthday of the NFC channel. On the 5th of February, I came to life officially. I'd been sort of promoting it back in 2020, whatever, boom, this year, 5 years ago. And on the 5th of February, it all came to life. And so I've always celebrated the 5th as my birthday for NFC. Today, I want to do things very differently. Firstly, I would love you guys to have a mate or a drink of your choice, something to accompany me on this little journey. I want this to be a bit of a timestamp for myself, and I always talk about how I love writing in my journal and expressing my thoughts. Well, this is my video journal, so it is a bit of a sort of a personal introspection, sort of reflecting back on things. I also want to use this as an opportunity for those people who might be interested in creating a YouTube channel or even creating a business. I've discovered that this is for me, I've discovered that I learn from people's successes but also mistakes. So let me share with you my things that I feel that I've done well and things that I have not done well, and you can now use this as a bit of a marker in the sand for your decisions that you plan to make within your journey. At the end of this particular episode, there is a giveaway, which is this full bottle of Dolce Milano, brand new brand that I've created alongside Kevin, Olfactive Traveler. We've released 3 fragrances. They're actually behind me there. And Dolce Milano is significant, and I need to tell you why, but again, I'll share more at the end of this particular episode. I was probably about 14 years old, and I wanted to get a job, and I went with a friend of mine who was selling newspapers at a traffic light. Think of it seems sort of kind of comical. Think of the kid on the corner going extra extra, read all about it. It was basically that. So the cars would stop at a traffic light, and it was a massive intersection. So you had a lot of time to walk up and down the cars selling this newspaper. At the end of that experience, at the end of that session, which normally lasted about an hour and a half, this is directly after school, the person would make 2 cents on every sale of a newspaper. I remember my best friend was always banging on about how incredible this job was and how much he loved it and the money he was making. So I thought, I'm going to join him because they were looking for new recruits. And off I went, and I joined him just to sort of test it and see. Man, I'm like, this was hard work. This was hard work, going up and down, smelling the fumes. The fact that these kids were in amongst cars while the traffic, the light would go green. The money was being exchanged, and you quickly wanted to get your 25 cents because you got to make your 2 cents out of it. At the end of that, my mother said to me, how was the newspaper? Because it was the job that all kids had. How's the newspaper thing? You going to do it? And I'm like, nope. I'm like, that's not for me. It was by chance that I discovered that I have a bit of an entrepreneurial sort of spirit about me. I have this desire to, I'm effective at communicating. I am able to sort of share an idea that other people can sort of catch a hold of. A friend of mine said to me, this is at school, how come your skin, you don't have any pimples? What's going on there? And I thought, I don't know. I said, this was a poor boy who had a lot of pimples. He was using all sorts of pimple creams and blah, blah. And he said to me, why is it you don't have it? And I'm like, I don't know. I said, I use my dad's soap that I use that to wash my face. And he's like, what do you mean your dad's soap? So I began to explain how my father, purifies fat, and then he puts flowers, and he puts essence, and he creates these things, and could I have your father's soap? And in that second, pop, I thought, of course you can. For a little price, no problem. And so what I started doing, it was, as my father would make soap and he would leave it drying, I would carefully remove one, make sure that the spacing remained the same so it didn't look like one was missing, cut that in half, and then sell these small bars of soap to my friend, and then it became my friends because the word got out that, look at my face, it's so clear that word got out that, Marcelo's dad's soap was a miracle cure for pimples. My father discovered that I was, pilfering his little soap. He didn't mind. He would put some aside for me, and I had this little business going on where I was selling these soaps. And now I was selling them for, I think, like $1 or $2 for a bar versus 2 cents for everything. That was a good little side hustle that I was doing at school. And I discovered through a mentor of mine at the time, and he said to me, there are 3 key markers when you set up a new business, and this applies also for YouTube channels and everything else: 1, 5, and 10. 1, if your business can survive that first year, means that you've got something. It normally takes a year for a business to get up on its feet and begin to sort of be known for something. The next milestone is 5. If you can survive 5 years, that means that you've had now growth, and therefore you've also had employees come in. You know how to manage people, and you know how to continue to be relevant within the market. And the next growth is 10 years. So the first one is, do you have an idea? Number 1. Number 5 is, can you create a level of growth? And number 10 is about stability. How can you now take this concept that is generating value and something positive into a place where it can now begin to sort of really get the roots put into the ground. One thing that I've always been privileged to have is mentors all through my life. And not necessarily someone came up to me and said, hello, I'd like to become your mentor. I feel that lessons in life are learned because of others' mistakes or successes. And it's because of these things that I've always sort of been drawn to people and asking them questions. And a lot of these individuals saw that my intrigue, and so they've said, without officially going, I will now become your mentor, have shared and imparted knowledge and experience and wisdom to me. It was in the early 2000s. I'd been fortunate to be headhunted into working for a company called Evian, like it's a mystery company, Evian, the water company. And I was first originally responsible for Victoria alone. Now, there had been a lot of dynamic changes occurring in Evian, and whilst all those people around me all my colleagues were like complaining and stuff, I just saw that there was a thing that I needed to adapt, so I would change and move. My manager, who was the GM, he became my mentor. He was an incredible man and such a supportive man in helping me grow. He once said to me, you adapt to change really easily. And I think it was only years later that I realized that it's not so much adapting to change, but just like opportunities are everywhere. And so rather than going, oh, this is an unfortunate situation, things are tough, just going, okay, how do I move and sort of adjust myself so that I can now continue to move forward. I grew in that business. I was very successful, but I had an epiphany one time. And this is a true story. I was flying business class to Paris. I started my role as a responsible Victoria. Then I was responsible for 2 of the Australian states, Victoria and South Australia. Then I became responsible for Australia. Then I became responsible for Australia and New Zealand. And I was being groomed to now become responsible for the Asia Pacific region when it comes to managing wholesalers and people who were associated with the brand Evian. I was flying business class to Paris, and up until that moment I'd been doing a lot of business travel, and I was still a young father. I think my youngest, Farron, would have been about 5, I think, but it was such a great job. I was having so much fun. The perks and the benefits within this business was incredible and was about to get even bigger because I was going to be responsible for such a large territory. Flying business class to Paris, and I listened to a song, and it was Fleetwood Mac's I'm a Family Man. And it was an epiphany. It was like a lightning bolt that came through me and made me realize that whilst this was a great life and I was having the best fun, I was a family man. I wanted to be with my children. I wanted to be with Sandra, and I realized that this was not my path, that the direction that I was going wasn't really going to end up in a place where I was going to ultimately be happy. And at that moment, I realized I needed to find something else. A good friend of mine set up a business called Smiggle for Australians. This was actually set up by, as I said, a very good friend of mine, and he said to me, how would you feel if you came across to Smiggle? He had just set up one retail outlet in South Yarra, And what if you come across a smiggle and help me develop the wholesale divisions, try to start to sell it to, you know, being this is what you do, you know, can you help me grow within wholesale? And I thought, sure, you know, so we worked something out. Now, in 3 years, I was there for 3 years, we grew from zero when I walked in to the first year generating 250,000. This is in revenue, 250,000. Then the second year was $500,000. And before I left, we were on target to hit $1 million in sales. It was during this smiggle experience that I came across the word chutzpah. And I had never heard of this word before. I was meeting with the buyer from Myers. They are a large retailer here in Australia, department store. And this was a really auspicious meeting with the central buyer for all of Australia. And I knew that I needed to show him all the elements that made smiggle. But it was just me. My friend didn't have the budget to pay for more people and, you know, get an assistant, blah, blah, blah. So I had to, you know, and to be there in this meeting. And I had a very short window for me to be to have this meeting with this gentleman. So I had to carry all these things. There was a million different elements. Now, in retrospect, it wasn't that big a deal, but when I walked in and I had it all set up, and the gentleman walked in, it was all I remember, he was so well dressed. I mean, just like James Bond. He was just so tailored. And he looked in the room and he said, "Is it just you?" I said, "Yes." I didn't quite know what he meant by this. And he said, "How did all this get in here?" And I said, "Well, I brought it up, I carried it." And he looked around and he said, "Did you bring a trolley?" And I said, No, I brought it up." And he's like, "My friend, you have chutzpah." And I'm like, "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" And he says, "No, chutzpah makes things happen." Never forgot it. And I thought, yeah, I just realized I have chutzpah. Things are tough, things are difficult, things are complicated, things are hard, things are not the way you want them to be. But chutzpah, you know, that, you know, I can do this thing, I can make it happen, has been like the driving force, you know. As I come up to walls that look insurmountable, I'm like, yeah, I reckon I can jump this. I reckon I can do something to get around this one. For better or for worse, this chutzpah created a false illusion in me. And let me just quantify. Chutzpah is important. You need to have the ability to go, I can do this thing. I can break through this. To give you a little bit of background about me as a young boy at school, I was terrible. Most likely the dumbest kid in school. I've told before that we were in a parent-teacher interview and the teacher said to my father, "Your son is pretty dumb and he most likely will become a milk bar assistant." Back then, milk bars were like a grocer, were popular, and so I would be the assistant. And whenever I think of this, I think of this particular image. For those who have seen the movie Amelie, this particular character who has a manky hand, is slow at speaking. This was, I guess, this is who she thought I was, essentially. I discovered that chutzpah, which is a mixture of positivity, like yes, this can be done, to creative and problem-solving thinking, and energy. Just the ability to have the energy to do things. I was able to create stuff. I mean, I never studied filming or anything of that nature, but one day, and more details on that, one day I decided to start filming, to create a production business. I started filming weddings and that was very successful. And then one night, in the middle of the night, I was going on holiday to Fiji and I heard a voice. It sounds weird and it sounds a little bit sort of mysticism, but I heard a voice and it said to me, "You should talk to the Fiji Tourism Board and pitch them the concept of creating a tourism video for them." And I remember responding back to this voice and saying, "I don't have experience in this area." And the voice explained to me, true story, that this was, yeah, just do it. Just do it, see what happens. Now, in the end, I did have a meeting. I did get a meeting with, I don't know how I got a meeting with the believe it or not, the tourism manager in Fiji, but I did. I went to see them in Nandi. But I thought, while I'm there, I may as well also have an interview with the resort I was staying at. And in the end, the resort agreed to this concept. Now, my experience was filming videos for weddings, and yet I pitched this concept to develop this advertising reel, blah, blah, blah. I had no experience, to the point one time I was using a gimbal. Before I was back to fly out, I was using a gimbal around the house to learn how to use it. I'd never used it before, and I kept bumping into walls. And my son Farron, he started crying, and I'm like, what's the matter? Why are you crying? And he said to me, he goes, they're gonna realize that you don't know what you're doing and you're gonna be fired. Turns out, I created a successful business traveling the world, filming hotels, resorts, and also tourism providers with this concept. So I genuinely thought, I mean, I had the best of everything. I genuinely thought, I can do it. I can do everything. You know, with Chutzpah, I can actually break through. Not to realize that there are some things that are out of my control. COVID hit, and my whole business just went down. That particular year, prior to COVID coming through, we had bookings all the way to December. This was at the start of the year, all the way to December. And I still remember, true story, I was in the Panerai store talking to Sandra, telling her the baller watch that I was just about to buy. And she said, hang tight, and you know, just if you can qualify, you know, she was, as a good financier, if you can qualify these certain numbers, you can have whatever watch you want. And I'm like, baby, this watch is mine. That year, as I said, COVID came along and obliterated my entire business. The only way that I could describe what was happening to me there is that I was drowning in oil. Anything else, Chutzpah would have got me out of, whether it was water or even quicksand. I reckon I would have found a way, but oil was it just would not allow me to move. And in desperation, I didn't know what I was going to do. Thank goodness I discovered this book. And it was basically that the universe that is aware of me and has my back. Now, just not to get sort of mysticism or mystic and religious, you define the universe however you want to. It could be, if you believe in God, it could be God. If you believe in your past selves or your ancestors, it could be that. If you believe in just an energy force that exists in the universe, it could be that. So wherever you sit with it, just know that that there is something that is propelling you forward and helping you move down into your life. Because again, I go back, life is about learning. And so it's helping you to learn different things. And the lesson that I learned really deeply is that I have chutzpah. So I can control my output. I can control the creativity, the ideas, the energy, the problem solving. But what I can't control is the outcome. So all this is me, but where this now ends up, the audience, someone watching this, the product that you create that, you know, hopefully someone resonates with, all those elements now fall within the scope of the universe. So I discovered that I just have to let things flow, continue to put that energy, that chutzpah into things, continue to have the creativity and the energy and the excitement of putting it out into the world, but now letting it go and seeing what happens next. It was during this COVID period that it took me a while to sort of move away from, I guess, the very self-centered, I can do everything, to I'll create, I'll, you know, continue to put energy and not despair, have positivity, but now release what this outcome is going to be. You know, this part I can't control, this I can. And I started to think, okay, if my world is now, and this is also the language that was being used at the time, and that is that we will no longer travel. The travel was a thing of the past, that we will now be restricted to borders. I mean, for me to go from Victoria to New South Wales, I needed a travel passport essentially. So everything would now be constrained. And so I thought this was our world. And then so in my trying to find a creative way through this process, and also utilizing my skills of filming and creating content and communicating a message, I thought, what if, and I thought of like experiential products like wine or beauty care, perfume, And I thought, how do these companies, how will they communicate if they, they can't be in the company of someone else? And how do they express what their product and what makes their product unique? So I thought, what we should do, and this is me thinking, I'll create a virtual sales rep essentially, who now shares about the value. And I was in conversation with a wine company who had a broad collection of wines from Australia. And I wanted to show this individual that we could create this online concept where people would have small samples and they could taste whilst they were being narrated by a key person from the business. He liked the idea. He said, okay, there's something, again, thinking that this was going to be our reality moving into the future. And so I thought, all right, well, I got to create a prototype. And so what I did is I grabbed my perfume bottles and I created this prototype to showcase what this thing could look like. I now had created it. I sent it to the client. Loved the concept. He loved the idea. But I thought, I may as well share this with my family and friends. And that way I can also see the holes that might be in here. So that way I can continue to refine this in, thinking of the client. Thought in mind. It was that started the snowball essentially when a friend of mine said, I really liked that video you did about the perfume, you super intrigued me. Again, this is all remote. People are watching this, not smelling it. It was just watching the presentation and how I then filmed everything and yada yada. And he said, you should do a YouTube channel. I thought, it's not possible. I can do it, but no one's going to watch it. I'm wasting my time. And he said, well, why not? He said, you intrigued me. You actually made me want to have a desire to smell some of those fragrances that you were talking about. I came to the conclusion, well, I've already gone to the trouble of creating this content. I may as well just create a YouTube channel. It doesn't cost me anything, and bada bing. And I then created the first episode, which launched on the 5th of February. Interestingly, money has never been my driver in things. I need money, and I'll come back to that. So money is needed for the business. Cash flow is king. But it hasn't been the driving force gets me out of bed in the morning. I was working with Evian, this is as I was growing within the business, and always having that entrepreneurial spirit. I started another little side hustle called Mr. Showbags. It was myself and a good friend of mine. And we grew this business, which was basically creating these sort of goodie bags that people would buy as like a fundraising sort of concept, from selling in Melbourne to Victoria to Australia. And it was a great little business. Now, my business partner at the time, he's like, let's quit our jobs and let's just double down in this area. The problem that I had, and let me just say, I said no, and I'll come back to that. He sold that business and made a very pretty penny. Anyway, at the time, I'm like, I'm having way too much fun at Evian. Evian were obviously seeing my Chutzpah, and they were promoting me and also sending me across the world, and I was enjoying this travel and all the perks, all the fun that came with doing that business, and also the learning. The other thing too is that my mentor, as I mentioned, that the general manager, was incredible. The learning that he gave me was phenomenal. And so I said no, so I sold my share to him. The thing that I've discovered, number one, is that money, wealth, doesn't buy you happiness. I've observed time and time again, people who are rolling in cash seem to have everything they want in life, and yet they're miserable, or there's drama, or there's some complexity, or they're technically unhappy. I'm not saying that money does create value, and it creates the ability to have nice things, but not necessarily to buy you that happiness, just by having that house. Another story, actually I won't share that story because they might get upset with me. But they wanted a house in a particular area, and finally they got that house in that area, but they weren't happy in the end, or still not happy. Then there is the other reality, which also applies to all of us, and that is, and I've discovered this definitely for myself, is that one day I will die. And so I always think to myself, to accumulate wealth and accumulate all these things only to then die and it all gets left behind. that's not my end goal. My end goal is to have fun. As a young boy, as a teenager, I wrote a short story. I've always been sort of in that creative realm. I've always enjoyed creativity. I've always seen things in a movie sort of landscape. And I wrote a story about a man. I love these twist endings, by the way. About a man who was always unhappy, always grumbling about something, and it never seemed to go his way. Until finally it does, and he hits success and begins to develop something, and he's about to, and the way that the story ends, he's about to go cash in the money or create something or get the value, and he gets hit by a bus, and he dies essentially. So it was this very, I mean, now at the time I thought I was very avant-garde and very clever in my storyline. Now it's like, okay, sure, you know, twist ending, the guy dies. But the core of the story for me, which still resonates, is that success isn't something that you get, or not sorry, happiness isn't something that you get to eventually. Happiness is now, right now. And so I've always been driven by the fun that I can have and the fun that I'm having. And if I'm not having fun, then it's something that I'm already going, you know what, I don't think this is for me. Tic-tac-toc. Going back to money. Money is important, so I don't want you to misunderstand, especially if you're developing a new business. Money is crucial. You need money as a form of water, essentially, for that plant. But for me, this water isn't where I get my joy from. The joy comes from seeing the plant grow from a seedling to a sapling to a tree, to then seeing those trees, you know, the branches expanding and leaves and then big juicy fruit that I can enjoy in season. That's where my joy lies, in seeing the fulfillment that occurs as a result of this concept, this idea, this thing that you're putting energy into, which requires the water, the money, for it to actually grow. And so here we are at 5 years. Happy birthday, NFC. Exciting to be at this milestone. I have been, as I've been moving through this journey, I have been looking at this 5-year mark, and this is the part that I didn't share previously, and that is that 1, 5, 10, you do have to make the decision to either put a bullet in the head of this business if it's not hitting the right criteria. This is something that Kevin has always known from the beginning. He asked me a few times, what are you going to do if you hit 5 years and you haven't hit the criteria that you need? I said to him, and this is from a past experience, I said, I have to put a bullet in the head, even though I don't want to. I have to now go, we're done, and I'm moving on to something else, because unfortunately, if it doesn't hit those markers clearly, then unfortunately, you don't have a business. An experience that I had in which we developed it was a great concept. The idea behind it was about helping teenage students to find a career path, and it was a method in which they would watch these people within their profession and show them what the job was actually like. Then we had universities that would then speak to these individuals and say, hey, if you want to study this, you can come to me. So it was this great little partnership. It was about helping the community, helping children find their path in life. Year 1, great year. It actually won a runner-up prize in a local competition that we did here in Melbourne as a best business plan for within Melbourne. Year 2 and 3 was slowly growing, and every year we would say we're on the precipice, we're about ready to fly. Other universities and tertiary sort of companies would come on board to sort of support it. But every time it'd go up, something would make it come down, and it'd go up and something would make it come down. It wasn't until year 5 that we had to make the very difficult decision to put a bullet in the head of this business and to say, we're done, we're over. That was, again, pre-COVID, around 2019, I think this occurred. I was bitter. I was so angry with the world. I was so angry with the universe. All this energy and chutzpah and, money and time and everything that I'd put into this, and yet here was something that just couldn't get off the ground properly, just couldn't get up on its feet. I had to learn a lesson, and that is, let it flow. And all along, the signs were present to me that this business it was not flowing. It was because of my chutzpah. It's almost like it was on life support, and I was the machine. I was constantly like feeding all this energy, and it would like Frankenstein's monster come back to life again, sort of thing, when in reality it had no life of its own. Tough lesson to learn, but it was one that I learned very clearly. Let it flow, and if it's not there, you got to move on. I'm happy to say, hit my mic. I'm happy to say that NFC at 5 years, it has a life of its own. For those who are familiar with KM Fragrance Tours, 4 years now running. We've got our next tour happening in the south of France in September. If there was already some solid bookings in place. Once we've hit our number, we will close that off. If you'd like to join us, come to this experience, which is unique, which is exclusive, which is we create these bespoke experiences behind the scenes, enjoying time with the perfumers, with the raw ingredients, celebrating the art of perfumery. Then the birth of Olfactive Traveler, which we launched in November, and already the response that we've been receiving has been it's heartwarming to see the level of joy that this is bringing into people's lives. There are some bigger things also when it comes to all things Olfactive Traveler, and that continual celebration of the creator of the natural ingredient, and also of perfumery as an art form. So again, I say happy birthday to NFC. It's nice to be here in this moment in time, and I want to thank you guys. I want to thank you guys for your support, your energy, the camaraderie that exists here, the friendships that I've been able to establish behind the scenes, the connections that have been created across the world. I mean, sometimes I do have to stop and sort of pinch myself to think that, you know, I've got these connections with all these different individuals in different parts of the world where without NFC and without this experience, it just wouldn't exist. I think about the opportunities that I've had to be one-on-one with a lot of people, whether it's because of the tours or because of just traveling and being able to come across everyone that's been a part of this journey too. So, thank you. What a journey. It's all those things that I've shared. These are all those principles that I've used within my life to apply. This is what I've applied to NFC and also applied to the YouTube channel. Now, in closing, I have a promo. And the reason why Dolce Milano is so significant and why I want this one to be the giveaway. On the back, there you'll see that there's like an entry here. It's a journal entry, and it was something that I wrote after we started traveling again. As I mentioned, I really thought that we were always going to, you know, the future held for me being closed, no more travel, you know, to travel interstate within Australia, I needed a passport. And all of a sudden, I found myself traveling the world again, and you have no idea the excitement, the joy, the energy. Everything felt like the first time again. And I had just visited Milan for the first time because I had gone to Aix-en-Provence. And this is my journal entry that I wrote of that experience. So this is why. Dolce Milano is the one that I would like to give away as a celebration to about the 5 years of NFC. I'm hoping that in the 5 years that the NFC channel has been operating, that I have put forward some fragrances that have piqued your interest, that you've gone out to test, or even if you've really been sold on it, to actually go out and buy it for yourself. So I want to know what they are. And now to enter, to win your Dolce Milano, there are 3 ways that you can get an entry into the competition. You can do one or all 3. If you do one, you get 1 entry. If you do all 3, you get 3 entries. So I'll leave this up to you guys. Number 1, put a comment now into this episode. Tell me the fragrance that you've enjoyed, that you've come across as a result of the NFC channel, and that you've adopted it as your own. Sant'Elustra, MATÉ Premier, that's something that I absolutely love and I have banged on about. If that's converted you, then I'd love to know why, you know, what's the fragrance. You can have a second entry by putting in a story. Just tag NFC.perfumes. And I'll make sure that I push that across. That'll be a second entry. And for your third entry, all you got to do is follow Olfactive Traveler on Instagram. If you do all 3, You get 3 entries into the chance to win this. Now, the competition will run for 3 weeks. So I will close the competition. I will close this on the 24th of this month and then announce the winner on MATÉ Talk, spin the wheel on the 26th. Now, Michelle will be looking out for you guys. So for instance, if you are, actually, do you have to be a subscriber? Yes, you have to be a subscriber. So I'd love you to write a comment, but you have to be a subscriber to actually have an entry into the competition. When it comes to the olfactive traveler, we'll try to keep your name somewhat consistent so that Michelle finds it easy to connect all the dots and make sure that you have 3 entries to yourself. Any questions on this, please let me know. I believe that's pretty straightforward. Anyway, once again, I want to thank you guys. It's 5 years. It is between the 1, 5, 10, it is a major milestone. I do see a future ahead, and I do see that this next part, this next 5 years, hopefully is a stage of growth and development and a whole bunch of new exciting things ahead. I mean, the vision-wise, there's a lot of things that that I've got planned, and I'm really looking forward to sharing that with you guys. Thank you again for your support. Thank you again for being here, and I see you guys all on the next MATÉ Talk. Bye, everyone.